Is willing to discuss, and let's look ahead at that show coming up a little later on. So Lesotho, how can we ask if it should lose its sovereignty?
Well, in fact, that's exactly what some of our viewers, our followers are saying, that how dare we even broach the subject to ask whether or not Lesotho ought to be amalgamated into South Africa. So the question that we are asking is whether or not there should be a referendum, as has been suggested by some. We're also asking whether or not Lesotho is viable as a state. So we'll be speaking to social scientists and a group that is advocating for free movement of Basotho to get them to answer that question, whether or not it is a fair question.
Well, let's look at the promo for the show coming up a little later on, and then we'll discuss further with Tsepiso.
The Mountain Kingdom, the country which housed the liberation movement for many decades. Separated by this border.
That I don't like this border, because it doesn't make sense to me.
But the two remain allies. Watch African Perspective on Wednesday as we discuss Lesotho.
So I guess what's important here is the opinions of the Basotho themselves as well.
Absolutely, and you know that, Francis, we have up to something like a quarter of the Basotho population here in South Africa, and we'll be looking at those daily border crossings, who is crossing into the country, for what services, and whether or not the Lesotho government itself is meeting its obligation as a state, and if the Basotho feel that they will be better off in the Mountain Kingdom, or whether or not they'll be better off here in South Africa. And we're also asking the question whether or not it's sustainable for South Africa to keep up the mediation efforts, which come at a cost, and some of the efforts that they're taking to broker peace within Lesotho.
So certainly the politics have been very ruckus. What is your sense? Is the average Basotho person in Lesotho on the streets attached to being part of the Mountain Kingdom, or is it it doesn't make much difference? A lot of them trade, a lot of them work in South Africa.
The issue of trade comes out very strongly about whether or not being part of South Africa will allow them to have gainful employment, a good livelihood, to be able to feed their children. But from the opinions that we're getting, very strong opinions, but it seems to be 50-50 at the moment. So people should watch the program and continue to give their contribution.
And in the promo, you've got the finance minister, so South African government officials also divided.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you very much. That was Looking Forward to African Perspective with Tsepiso Makwetla, your host, a little bit later on.